Over 150 people from more than 20 countries are in Kuala Lumpur to take part in base jumping.
Participants free fall through the air before opening their parachutes moments later. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Rich Yelago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
United States asserts there are no plans for permanent military basing in the Philippines. Big oil price rollback expected for next week. Kyiv official insists Ukraine needs $3 billion a month. Russia claims Ukraine stores Western weapons near nuclear plants.
Right now, there is a ground stop on our airport.
And China says there's no intention of airspace violation in spy balloon incident.
The United States is not interested in building permanent bases in the Philippines. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin III clarified this after the Department of National Defense and the U.S. Department of Defense agreed to designate 4 new locations for the Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA facilities. The EDCA locations are important areas for training and opportunities to strengthen the interoperability of the Philippines and U.S. forces. Through EDCA, humanitarian issues, disaster relief, and other types of crisis will be responded to quickly.
The Overseas Worker Welfare Administration, or OWA, reports that legal and financial assistance was provided to the family of Julie B. Ranara. Randy Bernardino tells us more.
Julie B. Ranara, the murdered OFW in Kuwait, is scheduled to be buried on February 5. According to Overseas Worker Welfare Administration, or OWA Administrator Arnel Ignacio, Ranara's funeral will be held at Golden Haven Memorial Park in Las Piñas City. Ignacio says Ranara's family had asked for Julie B's funeral to be private. He adds that all assistance, including death benefits and burial assistance to Ranara's family, has been provided, along with legal measures for the family to get justice. The family's power supply was restored after Ranara's father brought the issue to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. himself. Ignacio says Julie B's dream of owning a home for her family was fulfilled after the Villar family made sure that the Ranara family would be given a new home.
Napakahirap po nito, yung dynamics ng OFW. Ang hirap ipaliwanag kung laging puro impressions lang ang pinanggagalingan. So it's really very valuable that I have a chance. Ang aming setup ay nakikipagtrabaho kami sa mga opisyalis ng gobyerno na bihasang-bihasa dito sa aming gawain. Sana naman nabararamdaman nyo at napapansin ang mga nagagawa nating reforma sa OWA.
Ignacio assures the OWA will strengthen its hotline services to respond quickly to the complaints and requests of OFWs as well as their families who are left in the Philippines. Randy Bernardino for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The deportation of some Japanese fugitives will begin next week. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice plans to change the deportation rules. Paulo Ramos has the details.
The Department of Justice has assured that deportation will begin next week for some of the Japanese fugitives wanted in Japanese robbery cases. This is after courts such as Taguig, Bacolod, and Maguindanao have dismissed the cases of the 2 Japanese nationals. A court in Taguig City has confirmed the dismissal of a case against another Japanese man who is said to be one of 4 deportees by the Japanese government for robbery cases. According to the clerk of court of Taguig City Metropolitan Trial Court, Branch 116, the judge upheld the prosecution's motion to withdraw the case against Toshiya Fujita. Fujita was one of the men included in the request of the Japanese embassy to be deported back to Japan.
The motion to withdraw stated the ground that there is a consistent absence on the part of private complainant. However, the court made an independent study, a revisit of the probable cause, and finds that there is none. That is the reason why the motion is granted, and it has the effect of a dismissal of the case.
The Japanese man was charged with light threats under the revised penal code by Francis Alcantara, who is allegedly a lawyer after he was threatened with disbarment charges in August 2021. The clerk of court also explained that aside from the lack of probable cause, the accused and private complainants did not appear at least once in the court's called hearings.
At the time that it was rappelled, we immediately set it for hearing. Kung nagkaroon ba ng it is not us, it is not the court. Because upon rappel, upon receipt, we immediately set it for hearing. When? We set it on November 22, 2021. Right away, we set it for hearing, for arraignment.
Did the complainant?
None of the parties appeared, the complainant, the accused, even if there is counsel representing them, there is no appearances.
Now that he has no pending case in the country, the DOJ will deport Fujita on Monday, February 6.
One thing for sure is that we will start deporting next week. Yes. Hopefully by Monday, hopefully.
The secretary said that out of the 10 or 11 cases faced by the 4 Japanese, 7 of them have been dismissed. One of the things that is expected to be dismissed is the violence against women and children against alias Luffy or Yuki Watanabe, who is pointed out as the mastermind of the Japanese kidnappers.
Two are clear already, almost clear. I think they're clear already. 2 are clear already. But we want everybody cleared by next week, and we're working to that end. But as I said earlier, we are studying the allegations and how serious they are, so that we will not be disregarding any rights. Because the violence against women law is a very serious, is a very important law, and we do not want to be violating any rights.
The DOJ plans to revise the deportation rules because some of the proceedings are no longer practical. Remulla believes that some lawyers abuse the rules covering deportation to file an invented case and prevent deportation.
We made a study of the system by which all of this operates, and that the rules that govern deportation may be changed, but we will have to wait for the results of this deportation to learn from the experience, because we're learning from this why some rules may have to be changed on deportation.
Meanwhile, Remulla revealed that the government is also preparing the formal turnover of evidence to the Japanese authorities. He said that cell phones were seized from the fugitives while they were detained in the Bureau of Immigration Detention Center. The turnover will be carried out in accordance with the rules of transnational crimes agreed upon between the 2 countries. Paulo Ramos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Marcos administration spearheads 7 significant infrastructure projects approved by the National Economic and Development Authority. Man Corvera has the details.
The National Economic and Development Authority has approved 7 major infrastructure projects led by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. This was confirmed by NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan at a press briefing held in Malacanang after their 3rd meeting with the President. According to Balisacan, these projects are significant for the administration's desired social and economic transformation. One of the projects is the construction of the University of the Philippines, or the Philippine General Hospital Cancer Center Public-Private Partnership Project. It will have a budget of 6 billion pesos and a bed capacity of 300.
These projects are expected to significantly contribute to achieving our social and economic transformation goal in the medium term. First on the list is what has been mentioned, the approval of the University of the Philippines, Philippine General Hospital, or UPPGH, Cancer Center for Public-Private Partnership. The NEDA board approved the solicited build, transfer, operate proposal for the Cancer Center, which will offer comprehensive, high quality, and affordable oncology care services while helping pay for itself over 30 years.
Included in the approved projects are the increased budget for the MRT3 rehabilitation project with a new total of 29.6 billion pesos, communications navigation surveillance, air traffic management system, the construction of 17 billion pesos new Dumaguete Airport development project in Bacong Negros Oriental, and 6.6 billion pesos in Mindanao inclusive agricultural development project aimed at increasing agricultural productivity and others. Balisacan assured that this does not mean that the Marcos administration will privatize these projects, even though the government has partners from the private sector. The secretary also stressed that there will be no increase in the service of these projects, such as the UPPGH Cancer Center and MRT3 Fair.
Hindi mangyayari yan kasi may kontrata. It's part of the contract na yun masustain as a ward yung one half of the facility. So yung mga earning those who can afford to pay, mga mayayaman na nag-avail ng service ng PGH, marami yun they can afford naman to pay, so they pay, and then the part of that money that then can be used to subsidize the those in the ward, and so that the quality of the service can be the same. Yeah.
Just to reiterate, you mentioned, so of the 300 beds, 150 will be for charity, and the other 150 is an option for private,
That's correct.
the private health sector.
Mayan Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development ensures that the eligible poor will receive government aid and benefits. Nadine Aguilar tells us more.
The new Department of Social Welfare and Development Secretary Rex Gatchalian has unveiled a strategy to address public needs, especially during disasters, to address the problem of hunger and poverty in the country. Gatchalian said in a press conference that the first thing he will do is to organize the data and list of poor citizens that the DSWD will help, and that the agency will hire data experts including the Philippine Statistics Authority and social weather stations. The secretary says it is necessary to determine who the DSWD should really help, especially in the implementation of the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, or 4Ps, and other government financial assistance. Gatchalian adds he will focus on fighting hunger and poverty by restoring the food stub and providing livelihood assistance to the poor.
One, we were talking about bringing back food stamps, di ba? Parang sa abroad. Kaya nga importante yung data. Mag-uusap kami ng mga eksperto para malaman nga natin sino ang pamilyang nagugutom para this time ma-encompass natin sila. Food stamps, iba-iba pang modality. Pangalawa, na pag-usapan na natin yung enhancing ng care facilities natin kasi we're going to make sure na pag mag-e-enhance tayo na talagang poprotektahan natin yung vulnerable sectors natin, katulad nga ng mga Pilipinong nakatira sa lansangan, nasa ilalim ng mga tulay, dapat ready tayo to take them on.
Gatchalian notes the DSWD will accelerate the provision of relief assistance by establishing assistance hubs in every municipality in the country. He clarifies that before and after disaster strikes in any area of the country, there must be a government presence.
Yung sakuna nga, hindi mo na ma-predict. Pero mas grabe pa tong climate change na nangyayari. Wherein dati-rate, kaya natin masabi, tag-ulan na. So, preposition. Ngayon nga, hindi nga tag-ulan, umuulan. Yung umuulan, hindi naman, yung dapat tag-ulan, hindi naman umuulan. Diba? So sabi niya, what do you think will enhance our capability? Ito yung papasok na yung nasabi ko. Sa Valenzuela, natutunan ko na ang social work, ang disaster response ay labanan ng logistics. Para masigurado mo na nandun ka ahead of the disaster, or kung tumama siya sa hindi inaasahan, nandun ka during the disaster, at ikaw yung last na aalis, kayo yung last na aalis.
Nadine Aguilar, for Mata ng Agila International, Trusted, connected, on point.
The quality of education in the Philippines is declining. Vin Pascua tells us the causes identified by the Philippine Business for Education in this report.
Quality training of teachers. This is one of the reasons why some consider the quality of education in the Philippines to be poor. According to the Philippine Business for Education, they have seen that previous licensure examinations have had an impact on teachers. They had been using data they have collected for 12 years.
Isa talaga sila sa pinaka importante, or they're one of the biggest factors for student learning outcomes or performance ng mga bata in the classroom.
The group weighs the percentage of those who pass at the national level and at the provincial level. According to the AGAS, the percentage of those who pass the test is low.
Unang-una nakikita talaga natin na sobrang baba ng passing rate of the licensure exam. So, about 56% of schools that offer licensure exam in elementary and secondary have low passing rates, below the 12-year average. Nakikita din natin na it's the repeaters or those who take the licensure exam again and again that bring that numbers down. Kasi mas mataas yung passing rates ng first-time takers.
Moreover, PBED also provides the reason for the low quality of education is unavailable classrooms, school congestion, and even poverty and malnutrition. Now that the Department of Education is conducting a review of the K-12 basic education curriculum, RAAGAS has an invitation to the current administration.
What we're seeing, though, is we hope na there is a connection among all these. Kailangan natin siyang makita as a pipeline really na ang isang person from cradle to grave, isang portion lang yung education niya dyan. But then, if we make sure na from the start, from the cradle pa lang, they receive adequate care, their parents receive adequate information on how to take care of them, the effects are long-term and the effects also show in school.
Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Good news for motorists. Price of oil products are expected to have a rollback of 3 pesos per liter next week. Oil industry sources says it is possible that the rollback price for diesel will be between 2 pesos and 40 centavos and 2 pesos and 70 centavos. The rollback price of gasoline is between 1 peso and 90 centavos and 2 pesos and 20 centavos, while kerosene prices could roll back by 2 pesos. If the rollback happens, it will offset the 2 big-time price hikes in January. The Oil Industry Management Bureau of the Department of Energy says the rollback may still move as the trading days are not over. As of today, the cumulative adjustments in pump prices are 7 pesos and 20 centavos per liter of gasoline, 3 pesos and 5 centavos for diesel, and 4 pesos and 55 centavos for kerosene.
The cold winds and northeast monsoon are still present in the country. However, a bit of warm weather will be experienced in several areas of the country. This is what Pagasa weather forecaster Benison Estareja said. According to Estareja, the northern part of Luzon and eastern Visayas will continuously experience the northeast monsoon until the end of February. In early March, a bit of a northeast monsoon will be felt in northern and central Luzon. Pagasa clarifies the dry season has not yet started in the country. The cool dry season is experienced from December to February, while the hot and dry season is from March to May. Coming up, a construction fire in Crimea kills 8 people. China criticizes Canada for agreeing to accept Uyghur refugees. And Peruvian President Dina Boluarte refuses to resign from her post. Mata ng Agila International. We'll be right back after this short break.
This portion is brought to you by Final Match Security and Investigation Agency.
Do you love to travel and spend on experiences? Thinking of taking that selfie with a lush mountain background or be in a clear blue water with colorful marine life around you? How about trying to go all over the Philippines? On this episode, let's hear it from the woman who sets her sights on putting the Philippines prominently in the global destination map. Tourism Chief herself, Department of Tourism Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco on what's in store for the tourism industry this 2023 and where we might see opportunities for business and leisure.
The interest in the Philippines continues as a must-go-to destination all over the world.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m. This portion.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. At least 8 people are dead after a fire ripped through temporary housing for construction workers in Russia-annexed Crimea. Russian authorities say the blaze broke out early Thursday in a 2-story building near Crimea's port city of Sevastopol. 2 others suffered injuries and are being treated in hospital. Firefighters extinguished the blaze by Thursday morning. Local investigators say a criminal probe has been launched on charges of death by negligence. The Russian news agency TASS quotes a source as saying the fire could have been caused by a short circuit in an electrical appliance. More than 100 people lived in the temporary accommodation. The victims had been working on construction of a major highway across a peninsula. Russia annexed Crimea in 2014 following a referendum that is not recognized by Ukraine or its Western allies.
The 1-year anniversary of Russia's war with Ukraine will likely be marked with new sanctions against Moscow. European Union President Ursula von der Leyen says she wants those measures ready for that date.
We will introduce with our G7 partners an additional price cap on Russian petroleum products. And by the 24th of February, exactly 1 year since the invasion started, we aim to have the 10th package of sanctions in place.
Von der Leyen says existing sanctions are eroding the Russian economy. She adds the oil price cap alone is costing Russia 160 million euros a day.
News sources say Ukraine needs $3 billion of financial assistance every month. Deputy Finance Minister Olga Sikova says Kyiv has received confirmation from the U.S. and the EU on the allocation of $30 billion this year. But Sikova says the fund is still about $10 billion short of Kyiv's needs. Kyiv also claims it faces a $38 billion deficit this year. Meanwhile, IMF representatives plan to meet Kyiv officials in mid-February to reportedly advance discussions over a loan. Reports say this loan, ranging from $14 billion to $16 billion, will be finalized by spring. The EU also put together an 18 billion euro package, but other Western allies want international lenders to accelerate financial support for Ukraine.
Russia says it has reliable information that Ukraine stores ammunition of the West near nuclear plants. Intelligence data claim these weapons include HIMARS, air defenses, and other multiple firing systems. RT correspondent Roman Kosarev has the details.
The director of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, they received reliable data that the Ukrainian armed forces are storing weapons and ammunition provided by the West on the territories of nuclear power plants in Ukraine. Now, the head of the service, Sergei Narishkin, claims that the weapons in question are some of the most expensive that Ukraine received from NATO countries. Now, the statement also mentions missiles for multiple launch rocket systems from the United States called HIMARS, various foreign air defense systems, as well as large caliber artillery ammunition. Now, the warning issued by Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service clearly states that the forces of the Kiev regime are employing terrorist tactics in using civilians as shields. Take a look.
The Ukrainian military command hides ammunition depots behind nuclear reactors. If a large-scale detonation of warehouses and the destruction of a nuclear power plant happen due to another stray Ukrainian air defense missile, then such a tragedy can always be blamed on Moscow. Kiev is absolutely convinced of this, given the silent encouragement by the West of Ukrainian artillery strikes on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant.
Now, the Foreign Intelligence Service adds that what Kiev is doing right now is a method often used by international terrorists. The only difference is that the hostages are not individual civilians, but tens and even hundreds of thousands of residents of Ukraine, as well as neighboring countries. Now, the claims made are not unfounded, as Ukraine had already shelled Eastern Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Zaporozhye region, where a nuclear catastrophe was narrowly avoided.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claims some people want to scare Moscow with its dealings with Russia or with China. He also believes outside nations play a game to prevent Russia and China's bilateral relations to come to fruition. But Lavrov argues that agreements between Moscow and Beijing benefit both parties, particularly their trade and economy. He believes these plans do not define Russia as a subordinate country. He underscores their agreement covers not only energy supply, but nuclear power, space exploration, and other high-tech sectors.
China maintains it has no intention of violating the territory or airspace of any sovereign country after the U.S. claims Beijing flew a spy balloon over Montana. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning warns against hype over the unverified issue. Mao says China is verifying the situation, and until the facts are cleared, speculations are not conducive to solving the problem.
从绿电点亮冬奥场馆到微火成剧。
日本外务大臣林方正在记者会上表示，在与中国外交
官员表示，他们近几天一直在密切监测一个他们确信是来自中国的高空的侦察器。
中国是负责任的国家，一贯严格遵守国际法，无意侵犯任何主权国家的领土和领空。关于这个气球的问题，刚刚我已经讲了，我们正在了解核实情况，希望双方能够共同冷静谨慎处理。
I am sitting in my driveway here in Billings, Montana.
Meanwhile, Canada says they are monitoring a potential second spy balloon incident over its airspace. Earlier, Pentagon said they tracked a Chinese spy balloon. A defense official claimed the balloon has flown over sensitive sites to collect information. Top military officials considered shooting the balloon down, but decided it may endanger too many people on the ground. The discovery of the aircraft comes just days before an unexpected visit to China by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
A move by Canada to accept 10,000 Uyghur refugees has angered China. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning accuses Canada of political manipulation. Mao Ning says Canada should respect the truth and stop spreading misinformation on Xinjiang-related issues. Canada has been critical of the way China treats Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in the Xinjiang territory. It has accused Beijing of genocide. Rights groups believe at least 1 million Uyghurs have been incarcerated in internment camps. Tens of thousands have fled, and China defends the camps, saying they are crucial to battling terrorism and providing vocational training to minorities.
In Myanmar, a UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Myanmar calls on the international community to stand against the junta. Joan Soriano reports.
The independent UN Special Investigator on Myanmar warns that the country's military rulers plan to seek legitimacy by orchestrating a sham election this year. He calls on the international community to stand firm against military rule, create a coalition of member states to enforce strong coordinated sanctions, and support the Democratic National Unity Government. Speaking to reporters here in New York, the special rapporteur says there are three things that the junta needs.
There's three things that the junta needs to sustain itself. It needs money, it needs weapons, and it needs legitimacy. The junta does not have legitimacy in the eyes of the people of Myanmar. So what they're seeking to do is to create the veneer of legitimacy in the international community and then project that veneer through their media sources to the population to say, look, we are being accepted by the international community. Our power is inevitable.
Andrew stresses that it is extremely important for the international community for member states to be extremely cautious.
And the first and foremost recommendation is to renounce the so-called election that the junta is planning to orchestrate in the middle part of this year.
Regarding sanctions, Mr. Andrews has this to say.
We have episodic sanctions on this or that entity, this or that individual. We've had some progress, and believe me, I greatly appreciate the fact that countries have been moving forward with respect to sanctions and pressure, but it's simply not enough.
Reporting from New York, Joanne Soriano for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
There will not be elections anytime soon in Myanmar. The ruling military junta extended the country's state of emergency for 6 more months, effectively delaying elections it had pledged to hold. The announcement comes on the 2nd anniversary of the military coup that toppled the government of President Aung San Suu Kyi. The day is marked by empty streets and closed shops in Yangon, the country's largest city and commercial hub. Activists urge people to stay home and shut down their businesses for the day in protest of the military government. Despite the empty streets, there is a heavy security presence. Meanwhile, thousands of pro-democracy protesters marched in Myanmar's northern Sagaing region. Junta Chief Min Aung Hlaing also confirmed that more than a third of the country's townships are not under full military control. Myanmar has been in turmoil since the military came to power. A bloody crackdown on dissent has sparked fighting across the country and tanked the economy. The military took over on February 1st, 2020, making unsubstantiated claims about election fraud.
Peruvian President Dina Boluarte insists her resignation is not at stake amid the near-daily protests happening in the country. Boluarte adds her government will not give in to political blackmail.
Mi renuncia no está en juego de esa situación. Yo sé de que hay un sector mínimo de la población de estos grupos que están generando la violencia y el caos en el país, que a manera de chantaje están poniendo la renuncia de la presidenta Boluarte, y nosotros no vamos a ceder a ese chantaje político anárquico.
Donde ven botones donde se puede parar.
Meanwhile, Peru's Congress voted down another proposal to advance elections from April 2024 to July this year. Lawmakers also rejected a proposal to push for a referendum on forming a constitutional convention. The proposal by the Free Peru Party was rejected with 75 votes against it and only 48 in favor, with 1 abstention. Peru has been embroiled in a political crisis since December 7 of last year. In 7 weeks of demonstrations, 48 people have been killed in clashes between security forces and protesters. Up next, Indian government cuts income taxes ahead of elections. Security is heightened on Toronto transit due to violent incidents. And the European Union hikes interest rates. Please stay tuned. Matanang Agila International will return for more global news.
Welcome sa ating surfing spot dito sa La Union, Philippines.
Mineral water!
Five, 4, 5, 1, 9.
Ayaw eh. Free foot massage. Okay ba? Masarap? Pwede na? Tote.
Oh no! It's beer only! Sunnet 25!
This portion is
As voters in India prepare to go to the polls next year, the government announces measures it hopes will move voters. Income taxes are being cut and welfare spending is being increased. The announcement includes promises to boost infrastructure spending for road, railway, and port projects. This could create millions of jobs and boost Asia's third largest economy. The International Monetary Fund expects India's economy to grow by 6.1% this year. The welfare increases will provide all households with piped water and health insurance for the poor. And the government has extended a scheme to distribute free food grains to about 800 million struggling families. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to seek a third term in a general election, which must be held before May of 2024.
Anger and frustration sweep over Nigeria as the country is set to hold elections in 3 weeks. Some of the problems the country faces include a fuel shortage and chaos at the banks over a currency swap. Basic utilities are scarce as well. There is a chronic lack of water and electricity. People say they are tired of the lineups for gasoline at the bank and to get their voting card for the election. Some say they won't bother voting this time. The two main political candidates have been on the scene for years. They are wealthy but dogged by suspicions of corruption in the minds of many voters. Less than a month before voting day, frustrations are growing across the country. Protests have broken out over fuel shortages. There have been other demonstrations at political events.
In Canada, the city of Toronto beefs up security on its public transit system as violent incidents scare commuters. Joshua Santillana reports.
Because of the recent series of violent attacks on Toronto's public transit system, more security officers are deployed this week to help monitor and keep subway trains and buses safe. Just this month of January, more than 10 violent incidents happened on a TTC subway station or aboard a TTC bus. These attacks include robbery, stabbing, altercations, and sexual assaults. In these attacks, both civilian passengers and these incidents are still under investigation, but several are believed to be unprovoked and random. More than 50 security guards, 20 community safety ambassadors, and 80 Toronto Police Service officers are now deployed by the city in the hopes that their presence will help de-escalate violent situations and provide visibility, patrolling, and give immediate response if needed. Mayor John Tory says that on top of keeping TTC riders safe, they're also working to address the root causes of violence such as housing problems, mental health, and addiction treatment. Reporting from Toronto, Canada, Joshua Santillana, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A UN expert calls for reforms in Sudan, security, services, and accountability. This during Raduan Nuisser's first visit to the country, reeling from turmoil since a 2021 military power grab. Nuisser's visit comes more than a month after civilian and military factions agreed on an initial step in a two-phase political process aimed at restoring stability. Sudan has been gripped by deepening unrest since Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan led a coup in October 2021. It derailed a transition to civilian rule following the 2019 ouster of longtime President Omar al-Bashir. Nouisser, a Tunisian diplomat, meets with Burhan and his deputy, Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, as well as other senior Sudanese officials. The UN human rights expert urges authorities to hold to account officials who had abused their powers and called for a clear roadmap for security sector reform. He says the immunity from prosecution of members of the security forces implicated in human rights violations must be lifted.
The European Parliament voted to waive the immunity from prosecution of two of its members, Italy's Andrea Cozzolino and Belgium's Mark Tarabella. Cozzolino is accused of taking money in exchange for blocking resolutions that damaged the interests of non-EU countries. Tarabella is suspected of receiving bribes from Qatar. The two members of Parliament, through their lawyers, have denied said wrongdoing. The move follows a probe which led to a cash for influence scandal dubbed as Qatar Gate by European Parliament members. Greece's Eva Kaili, Italy's Pier Antonio Panzeri, and two other EU members allegedly received payments from Qatar and Morocco.
Polish Sports Minister Kamil Bortniczuk expects several dozen nations to come out against the inclusion of athletes from Russia and Belarus in the 2024 Paris Olympics. He told state television he thinks a very firm stance on the part of representatives from 40 countries will see the light of day. He adds he believes the countries would notably include members of the European Union and Britain. Bortniczuk also mentioned the United States, although the White House on Thursday said it would back allowing Russian and Belarusian athletes to compete as neutrals.
The European Central Bank has hiked interest rates by 0.5 percentage point. And Bank President Christine Lagarde says more rate hikes could come as it tries to curb inflation. Lagarde also says the European economy has performed better than expected.
Rising wages and the recent decline in energy price inflation are also set to ease the loss of purchasing power that many people have experienced owing to high inflation. This, in turn, will support consumption. Overall, the economy has proved more resilient than expected and should recover over the coming quarters.
Greenpeace stages a protest outside the London headquarters of Shell. They set up a mock petrol station prize board displaying Shell's profits. The group also questions the amount that Shell would channel towards payment for climate damage.
It's really important that companies like Shell and other fossil fuel giants acknowledge the harm that they have done, to take responsibility for their role, for locking us into a dependency on fossil fuel and locking in climate chaos. And it's impacting on communities and countries who are bearing the brunt of this, who've done the least to cause the damage. And that is really, at a very simple level, deeply unfair.
In its earnings statement, Shell announced its net profit surged to $42.3 billion last year. The post-tax figure was more than double the amount achieved in 2021. Shell said it would return $4 billion to shareholders and will lift its dividend following the record earnings.
People living on the Indonesian island Pulau Pari have filed a claim against a Swiss cement company for climate change damages. The island, which risks disappearing underwater, flooded 5 times last year. 4 residents filed the claim in Switzerland with the help of Swiss Church Aid, a non-governmental organization that advocates for climate justice. The complaint requests that cement giant Holcim pay for damage already caused on the island and finance flood protection measures. They also want the company to drastically reduce its carbon dioxide emissions. In 2019, Holcim sold its Indonesian operations to a local cement company, Semen Indonesia. The NGO says climate change affects all 1,500 people living on the island. It says Pulau Pari has lost 11% of its surface area in the last 11 years. It could take 3 to 4 years to settle the case if it goes to the highest court in Switzerland.
Electric cars are proving to be a hit in Norway and Iceland. They have the top 2 spots for the most electric vehicles per capita. Last year, electric cars made up almost 80% of the cars sold in Norway. The country wants to end gasoline and diesel car sales by 2025. In both countries, consumers have been encouraged by a series of incentives offered by the government. They include tax reductions and lower tolls and public parking fees. Lower electricity prices and charging infrastructure are also encouraging drivers to make the switch. Norway has about 5,600 fast and super-fast charging stations. Coming right up, Asia's richest person loses title after market fraud allegations. The Biden administration calls Exxon's record profits outrageous. And Pinoy Olympian EJ Obiena wins a bronze medal in Sweden. Catch more news when Agila International returns.
Together, walang talo pag together, let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
Isang organic product na maaari mong magamit pangkalusugan, pangtahanan, pang-livestock at maging sa kabukiran. Lahat yan, sabay-sabay natin matutunghayan. Ako po, si Robin Padilla. At ito po ang unlad. Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Indian billionaire Gautam Adani has lost his title as Asia's richest person. An American investor has accused Adani of the largest con in corporate history. RT correspondent Runjun Sharma tells us why.
The Adani-Hindenburg controversy has dragged on. Remember, the US-based investment firm had said that the Adani Group, which is owned by Asia's richest man and Indian billionaire Gautam Adani, had pulled the largest con in corporate history. Now, a fresh and rather lengthy rebuttal by the Adani Group is equating the Hindenburg report to a direct attack on India.
This is not merely an unwarranted attack on any specific company, but a calculated attack on India, the independence, integrity and quality of Indian institutions, and the growth story and ambition of India.
In the 413-page document, the Adani Group rejected the 88 allegations made by Hindenburg Group, saying that they had clear intent of profiteering at the cost of their public investors and shareholders.
Not one of these 88 questions is based on independent or journalistic fact-finding. They're simply selective regurgitations of public disclosures or rhetorical innuendos colouring rumours as fact.
Last week, Hindenburg published its quote-unquote investigation. Mind you, this was just 48 hours before the Adani Group was to attempt a huge stock market fundraising drive. And therefore, lots of questions being raised on the timing of this report.
A system is broken when corporate behemoths like Adani Group seem able to run an intricate fraud in broad daylight, and when ordinary citizens are terrified to speak out against those who use their power and wealth to suppress criticism. We hope this report marks the beginning of a change.
Well, Hindenburg says that it looks for man-made disasters such as accounting irregularities and mismanagement. But Hindenburg, or short sellers for that matter, are known for thriving on confusion and panic. They're also known for placing bets against big companies in hope to turn profit on their demise. But for now, it looks like allegations, counter-allegations, the Hindenburg and Adani saga will continue.
The Biden administration has slammed ExxonMobil for posting an eye-watering $55.7 million profit record last year, while average Americans were forced to pay such high prices at the pumps. White House spokesperson Abdullah Hassan says the latest earnings reports make clear that oil companies have everything they need, including record profits and thousands of unused but approved permits to increase production. He adds that the companies are choosing instead to plow those profits into padding the pockets of executives and shareholders. Exxon chief Darren Woods hit back, insisting the Biden administration needed to get its facts straight, claiming to have increased investment by about 38% last year.
Pinoy Olympian E.J. Obiena matched his own record in the Philippine indoor pole vault by winning the bronze medal at the 2023 Mondo Classic in Uppsala, Sweden today. Obiena jumped 5.91 meters and garnered the third place in the competition. Last year, the 27-year-old Obiena set a similar record on the Perch Elite Tour in France. Obiena began his 2023 indoor season campaign with a silver medal at the Internationale Springer meeting in Germany. This was followed by a gold medal in a competition in France held last week.
Tennis star Nick Kyrgios pleaded guilty to assaulting a former girlfriend in January of 2021. Yet Magistrate Jane Campbell did not record a conviction against Kyrgios, since the offense was at the low end of seriousness for a common assault. The magistrate also said the assault was not premeditated. Court documents say Kyrgios pushed Chiara Passari to the ground during a heated argument. Passari said she was severely traumatized by the incident, but lawyers for Kyrgios appealed and argued it was an isolated incident and out of character. A psychologist also told the court the tennis star suffered from major depression. Kyrgios, who was in crutches, did not speak to reporters as he left the court, but he issued a statement saying he respects the court's ruling. He explained he was not in a good place when the incident occurred. He also apologized for his actions and said he was working on improving his mental health.
It is the end of the work week, and to all movie buffs out there, Stephanie Mayo has this list of shows that you can watch this weekend.
As we near the biggest movie award show on earth, the 95th Academy Awards, let us dive into Netflix and watch a couple of nominees this weekend.
Best International Feature Film. All Quiet on the Western Front, Germany.
All Quiet on the Western Front. This epic anti-war drama could very well clinch the Oscar Best International Feature Award come March 12th. Based on the 1929 novel of the same name by Erich Maria Remarque, considered by many as one of the best war novels ever written, the German-language film is set in 1917 at the tail end of World War I, where it follows a young German soldier on the Western Front. It's an unflinching take on the horrors of war and a critique of the concept of nationalism. The bleak, visceral cinematic experience puts the viewer right on the battlefield. No wonder it bagged 9 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. The Elephant Whisperers. Nominated for this year's Academy Award for Best Documentary Short Film, The Elephant Whisperers follows an indigenous couple and their special bond with a baby elephant. Set in the Mudumalai National Park in South India and lensed with stunning cinematography, it captures the beauty of both the location and the way of life of the tribal people. This is the directorial debut of Kartiki Gonzalez, who spent 5 years following her subjects to make this acclaimed documentary. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
More than 150 people from over 20 countries are in Malaysia to participate in base jumping. The word base in the sport's name is an acronym that stands for buildings, antennae, spans and earth with objects including bridges and cliffs. Over the next 3 days, base jumpers will leap off from the roof platform of the 421-meter Kuala Lumpur Tower. They only have a few seconds to activate their parachutes after making the jump if they want to make a safe landing.
But I do it because, you know, it's a calculated risk. I think, you know, especially an object like this, it's a reasonable risk. You're far away from the object, so the chances of hitting it are you know, not very good. You know, hitting the object is hard. It would be hard to do. You have to mess up pretty bad.
Jumpers must be experienced skydivers, clocking in at least around 200 airplane-made attempts before they can even attempt a base jump. It is one of the most dangerous extreme sports around. A slight error could result in serious injuries or death.
I got jelly legs just watching.
My heart jumped, I swear.
But we have the whole weekend to recover because it's Friday. And to help you start the weekend, here's a quote from Richard Nixon, United States' 37th president. A man is not finished when he is defeated. He is finished when he quits. And oftentimes defeats, they're just the start of something bigger for you because you're inspired to do more and to do better, right?
That's right. I remember us saying last night, you will have many defeats in your life, but it remains your choice to keep going. And that being your choice, you should keep going.
That's true. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Take a rest, but keep on going and catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero. Happy weekend.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores, wishing everyone a relaxed and super-duper chill weekend. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.